Hello and welcome to Think About Gender, a podcast presenting thought-provoking questions from real opinions.
My name is Selena, and today we will talk about gender inequality in the STEM field.
What is equality and how do we achieve it? All around the world, people are fighting for their rights. In the past century, we have seen the fight for the civil rights movement, women's suffrage, and LGBTQ rights. However, how can we keep improving? This has been a question in my mind for the last couple of weeks as I brainstorm for my Writing to Make Change piece number 2, a high school project which I initially thought and got inspired from Alice Wong's Disability Visibility Project. And now I am here, being a woman myself, I found myself gravitating to the topic of gender equality. Gender inequality is defined as a social process by which people are treated differently and disadvantageously under similar circumstances on the basis of gender, according to Oxford Reference. Though gender inequality is discrimination against any gender, historically it has had a larger impact on women in all parts of life. Although since the 1960s, women's rights have increased significantly, today women are still underrepresented in many fields, such as sports, where 7% more men play sports than women, but at a young age, 22% more boys play than girls, leading to a significant difference in college sports scholarships and funding for women's athletic programs. When choosing careers, women struggle to be confident in male-dominated fields. In STEM occupations, women make up 35% of the work field. In many aspects of life, we can see the struggles of women to carve a spot for themselves as women try to move on from traditional roles. In workplaces where women are underrepresented, there tend to be higher cases of sexual harassment and pay discrimination as well. Overall, even in America or in the world, we can see that inequality for gender still exists, and even though we have taken significant steps to improve the discrimination based on gender, we can still see many countries who are still hesitant to open up work for women. And so, from my personal experience, I've seen the impact that the lack of representation can have on one's confidence. Well, this is the story of when I first joined Science Olympia. My journey pursuing science really started in middle school. In middle school, we had something called SciO, which is also Science Olympia. The coach was my earth science teacher, and he recruited me to join the club. And when I first joined, I wasn't really sure what was I getting myself into. And I found out there's so many different events in Science Olympia, and it was a great way to explore different parts of science, not just physics or chemistry or biology individually, but also how they are connected. When I first joined, I remember the first meeting, I wasn't too sure who to expect really. I walked into the room and there was just this group of tall guys, ninth graders, that were like standing right next to my coach, because of course they know the coach well and they really were just so much closer to him at first, and I wasn't really sure if I was gonna be able to make any friends because half of the room was high schoolers and then half of the room were like the middle schoolers, and there was just me and then there was another girl, and it was just two girls in a room of like 20 something people. And the Science Olympia team is actually 30 something people, so then in the entire 30 people there was only 2 of us. It was only until later on in the year that 2 more girls joined, and we were fortunate enough to end up having 4 to 5 girls on the team. Though it was still mainly boys, I feel like what was more important was that at least girls felt more comfortable joining Science Olympia, even though it was really awkward for the two girls, me and someone else. I think it was a worth it experience, trying to familiarize ourselves with like the lack of representation in the team and trying to build up like a foundation for girls to feel more confident in joining the team. And I remember like visiting back now in after COVID, the team was like basically half girls, which was really impressive considering that back then there were so little girls. And so I'm glad that even though it was really awkward at first, it turned out well for girls to feel more comfortable joining. And then after middle school, going into high school myself, it was a similar situation. In a room of like guys in chemistry, there was still only a couple of girls, maybe 2 to 3 girls. And I think it was during that time I felt that people started doubting me and doubted my ability to perform well in Science Olympia. And then that was when I really started losing confidence, because me being a girl, I was the only one there. No one has really been there to be the first one out there. Yes, there was an event leader, and she really encouraged other girls to be more confident and to keep going every time, even if we felt like we weren't too sure what we were doing. And it was also her that she noticed the lack of female representation in Science Olympia, and she wanted to do something about it. So she really encouraged every one of us to keep going. And I remember when I first found women's science, it was a really lonely time. I felt like before I found women's science, I felt like there was just so little people I could really talk to who could understand my struggles in science. And then after women's science, I found a group of individuals who were also really curious about science, who also had passion in pursuing in STEM careers, but were just really uncertain and not sure where to go from with our passions, feeling that society was limiting us in a way. And so when we were in a meeting, one of the girls were asking like, hey, like what is Science Olympia like? Like, should I join Science Olympia? Do you think it's worth it? And really, I was a little taken aback, because I think, yes, definitely it's worth it. But like from the stories I've heard in women's science about like the unsupported families and peers and how they feel held back by society and society's expectations on women. And I feel like, yeah, I've personally also been there. I think my parents initially, when I first started pursuing science and when I first mentioned that I really like research, they were really taken aback. They weren't sure if I was gonna have a stable life, so they really discouraged me from pursuing science. But then it was really at that time that I felt like all my confidence was taken away from both my peers and my family. And I think it was also that time that I started realizing that no matter how hard I pursue this, there will always be people who want to hold me back. Whatever happens, it is my passion at the end of the day, and I shouldn't let them be the determining factor of whether I keep going or not. So I told the girl, yes, you should definitely join. It is a wonderful experience, and don't be afraid, because even though there are so little girls in Science Olympia, we need people like you. We need people who are genuinely interested in science and who have a passion in pursuing science. And I'm glad she listened, because even though Stuyvesant is such a STEM school, there is a lack of encouragement for individuals to pursue their passion, no matter their identity. So I'm glad she listened to my advice, and I hope that with my story, I can encourage more people to also pursue science. And despite what others might tell you, you never know until you give it a try. And I hope that through my podcast, I want to convey not only my understanding and my personal curiosity of the topic, but also to bring up others' voices so that their stories can be told and people can learn from their stories. I figured that hearing from a diverse range of people will eventually help others find someone to connect with and find a story they can relate to and take away. Reaching out and learning from different people can be difficult, and there will be times when I won't agree with a person. However, I believe that it is within our best interests to hear from a diverse perspective on gender inequality that will not only help myself but also others become more informed about the issue and how to approach it. I hope that by hearing everyone's story, there is no definition for right or wrong opinions, and so everyone is subjective to their own opinions, and I believe but that hearing everyone out will not harm you or will not cost you anything. It is simply a way to hear and learn more experiences so we can be more sympathetic and empathetic as human beings. And I hope that through this podcast, everyone will find confidence in their own stories. And that is the message of my podcast. That's it for our episode today. I hope everyone looks forward to the next episode.